Hi, Aisha. I'm just going to go over this question with the audio and screen sharing. All right, so um, yeah, let's read this out. So we have a shopkeeper who says, Our city will soon approve the construction of a new shopping center, but I won't be relocating my store there. My store needs to be in a high visibility site with good growth potential. Okay, so that we definitely have a necessary condition, and you could even think of it as two necessary conditions, right? So high visibility site and good growth potential would both be necessary. So go okay. So store needs high visibility and good growth potential. So do that. If it doesn't have good growth potential or it doesn't have a high visibility site, then it's not going to be good for the store. It's not going to have what the store needs. But the new shopping center will be at either Maple Street or West Avenue. Okay, so we have two options then for the new shopping center. Couple ways that we could understand this, but I would just stick to this language that we have these two options. But then Maple doesn't have the high visibility, which means that shouldn't put the store there. And West Ave um, is missing the growth potential. So we shouldn't put the store there. So that's more like the format um, that I would write out for this one. There are other ways that you could do it. Like you could um, mention the new shopping center will be so shopping center. Um, we're going to have either, you know, Maple or West Ave. And then if it's not at Maple and it's not at West Ave, then it's not the new shopping center. That's not super useful. With or, you would have if not Maple, then West Ave. If not West Ave, then Maple. So it's going to be one or the other. And no matter where it is, you're going to have a problem that's going to lead to it not having what the shopkeeper's store needs. So um, I'm okay with it looking like this. I think um, really the one that's important to have is this conditional statement, and then to recognize that each of the options is missing one of the two necessary conditions, and therefore we're not going to put our store there. It doesn't have what the store needs. So then I'll go through the answer choices. So Appia will not renew the lease on her apartment unless her rent doesn't increase and she's permitted to get a pet. Okay. So unless both of these things are the case. So this is where using the seven sage method and treating unless like a group three word um, may like have us run into a little bit of trouble, but let's give it a try. Let's see what that would look like. So this is for answer choice A. So I like to treat unless like if not, but we have to apply the not to everything in here, right? So we have if the rent does not increase, so not increase and um, and she can get a pet. Okay, so if we are going to apply the not to each of these, that's why I put it in brackets to kind of show like we're sort of multiplying each element within the brackets by not. So it would have to be if if there's an increase or she's not allowed to have a pet, then she's not going to renew. That would be how we would understand that one. And I'll just make it a little shorter so it's more visible. Okay. So that's not bad. What we would need to know though is then there are like two different options. But what happens is the landlord both increases and um, like both increases the rent and prohibits pets. So the landlord does both of those two things that would lead to Appia not renewing. We want them to then introduce like two different options the same way they introduced Maple versus West Ave, and then show that Maple has a particular problem and West Ave has the other problem. So you need that like dichotomy going on. So A is not quite correct. B, Professor Myers is unable to teach any class next semester unless it meets in Diaz Hall in the afternoon. So we've got the two conditions there. So if it's not in Diaz Hall or it's not in the afternoon, um, just put PM for afternoon. Why don't I don't know. I'll put A and D. I have a tendency to write out more than necessary, but mostly just for like explanation's sake. Okay, then Professor Myers won't be able to teach it. If Professor Myers is teaching a class next semester, then it must be in Diaz and in the afternoon. Okay, now let's see. Myers can teach either ethics or political theory. Okay, so that's our Maple or West Ave ethics or political theory. Um, Ethics can't meet in the afternoon, so it's got a particular problem, right? Ethics not in the afternoon, so can't teach that. And political theory classes can, though. And then they can also meet in Diaz Hall, so Myers will teach. Okay, so this one doesn't work either, right? We can eliminate it because it's saying there is no problem with Myers teaching political theory. Okay, C. Finch will not travel this month unless he can get an inexpensive plane ticket or stay with a friend. Um, okay. Now this one, because we have unless, if we replace that with if not, and then negate everything going on in the brackets, we're going to negate the or to an and that's not going to be the right format. So, inexpensive plane tickets. So, I'll go not expensive for that. Or stay with a friend. So I'll just put F for friend. So now we have to negate each of those parts, right, to make it actually true and useful. So not E would just be E. So if it's expensive. And then we've got and not friend. So if it's expensive and he can't stay with a friend. So for Finch, this like the necessary condition is really just it has to be at least one of these things. He's not going to travel unless he gets at least one of these conditions met. Whereas previously it was they're not going to move the store unless it has both high visibility and good growth potential in the new location. So here we would have if E and F, and I'm going to change that to a plus sign to keep it more consistent. But that would be not or becomes and. And so that's why C doesn't work. So I would be able to tell at this stage that C isn't going to work and I could move on. And then we've got D. The concert will not sell out of tickets unless it is held at a small venue in the downtown area. So we've got two things that have to be true, both that it's small venue and downtown. So if it's not, right, so we have not small and downtown would be if not small or not downtown, right? Because we're negating each of the things within the brackets. Then they will not sell out of tickets. Okay. So if they do sell out, then it must be both at a small venue and downtown. Then we're told the concert will be held either at Jensen, which is large. Okay, so it's not small, which means they're not going to sell out. Or at Pembroke Hall, which is located outside of downtown, so it's not downtown, which means they won't sell out. And then all we need is the conclusion to say that they will not sell out, which it does. So D is the correct answer. Right, so we found the right answer with D. Good. We can talk about what's wrong with E, and I am seeing unless plus and. So I think there will be something else going on with that one. That's a problem, right? Because we do want unless plus and, because unless translates to if not, but then we actually have to negate every piece of that statement, right? So if we follow the 7-sage rule where it's a group 3 word, so whatever comes after it, we have to negate and make it sufficient. Negating what comes after unless involves negating each of those parts, which includes an and or an or. So that connecting word also has to be negated when we negate that idea. Okay, I'm going to clear these and then do E. So E, the new park near the river will not be popular unless it is well lit and its natural scenery remains undisturbed. Okay, so not popular would be our necessary condition if we're using 7-sage method. So let's wait on that. We've got if not instead of unless, and what do we have? Well lit. And natural scenery remains undisturbed. Okay, so I'll just do well lit and natural. So if it's not well lit or it's not natural, then it will not be popular. Okay, so far this one's looking good. This one's looking like a good match. So something else must be going wrong here for this to not be the correct answer. The park will be well lit if lamps are installed near the riverbank. Okay, so we don't want will be, okay, so lamps mean it will be well lit. That's not similar to our original where it was like we have choice A or choice B, and choice A has a problem, right? Here it's saying if we do X, then there won't it won't cause a problem. Like it will be well lit. So that's a bit weird, but I'll just write this out for the sake of the practice. So the park will be well lit if lamps are installed. So if lamps, then well lit, but installing lamps there would disturb the park's natural scenery. If lamps, then it would disturb the natural scenery. Okay. Um, so the new park will not be popular. Well, this is all contingent on lamps being the way that they um the way that they light the park. Is it possible to light the park without installing lamps? Um, is it possible to light it well without disturbing the natural scenery? That's not made like explicit, but in any case, the issue of coming up, oh, they've come up with a solution, but the solution doesn't solve both problems at the same time. Um, that's a new element that is not in the original, so it just doesn't match the reasoning of the original. So that's why E is out. So I hope that that makes sense. I know it really came down to the issue of unless. And then when you have that, how do you negate the sufficient condition, or how do you negate the idea and then make it the sufficient condition? Um, so I would think when you have unless, make sure to take the idea, like all the ideas, and put them in brackets. So if not, and then bracket, and then your next step would be to take every idea that's included. So let's do two examples. So unless A and B, so we have if not A and B, and then we negate each piece. So if not A or not B, what if we had unless A or B? Well, then it would be the same process, but or would become and. So that, then if not A and B would be the translation. So this is like what we would have. And I mean, we're not going to have brackets. Um, it's just going to look like that, right? That's in the stimulus or in an answer choice. And then we want to say, okay, we're going to change unless to if not. But when we do that, we want to make sure that we're going to negate the whole idea, which involves negating that connecting word. All right, hope that all hope that clears up the issue with this one. And yeah, let me know if you have any other things that you want me to go over. All right, have a good one. Bye.